I appreciate everybody coming out to take an hour out of their day to come hear me talk about marketing, and I hope this will be valuable for you. If not, you can send me a nasty email later, or hit me up on Twitter. People send me nasty things on Twitter all the time. So my talk today is called "I Wrote an App, Now What?" And it's going to be focusing more on the marketing side of app development, mobile development, instead of the actual nitty-gritty of making apps and how to develop them and things like that. So I think that a lot of the stuff I'm going to be talking about today can be applied across both iPhone, Android, different versions of the two, Windows Phone, like any sort of these things that BlackBerry. I don't know. Do people still write BlackBerry apps? I don't know. I actually saw a BlackBerry the other day. It was a very odd experience. This guy pulls out his BlackBerry, and I'm like, "What in the world is that?" And he's like, "Oh, I've got this Android phone here, and this is for my work, and then I've got this other iPhone over here. This is my personal one." And he's like, got 4 phones. But anyways, I don't know how people carry around 4 phones. So a little bit about me. You can see there's all my information. I'm Mark Rickert. I work here at Skookum, and I'm the internal automation hacker, I guess is my title now. I keep calling myself that, and I guess that's my official title now. I basically do all of the cool automation for the company, internal development, and a lot of finance and business reports and things like that executives want to see how the business is going and things like that. So it's really fun. I love automating things. I love doing things that help our business get better. And I also have a side company called Mohawk Apps that rock. And because I used to have a mohawk, I used to have a gigantic mohawk, but I don't have it anymore, obviously, as you can see. But I do that kind of on the side, and I write iPhone apps for usually pretty niche markets, direct sales companies, beer nerds, stuff like that. So I've been doing that for maybe 5 years, and I've had quite a bit of success doing it in my free time. A lot of people just write apps in their free time and just to kind of scratch an itch, but I've actually been able to turn it into a real business, and I hope to share some of the insights that I've learned in the past 5 years with you guys today. So a little more about me. You probably read my bio. I like to skydive. There's me jumping out of a plane. It's really fun. If you've never done it, you should try it at least once in your life. So, yeah. So my apps, I've got quite a bit of apps. I've got them all organized on one screen, and so the top row is all beer apps. Second row is kind of direct sales and kind of niche conference apps and things like that. And then I've got a texting app and an app for skydivers. And then I've also got a Mac app called Hacker Bar, which Andrew Gertig who works here, helped me with, and it's basically a little menu bar icon for Hacker News. If you're a developer, you know what that is. If you're not, you probably don't. And all but one are open source. So you can actually go and look at my GitHub account and view the source to every single application that I have in the App Store. The only thing I don't open source is the server code. So if there's an API or something like that runs on a server that does specific things, I don't open source that because that's kind of the bread and butter of the application. And if you don't have that, then you can't really replicate it. But I operate under the assumption that people are generally good, and they won't steal my ideas and just put something in the App Store that's my exact thing. And so far, nobody's ever done that. And if they did, I can just talk to Apple and they'll remove it. So not too concerned about that, about kind of giving away my trade secrets or whatever. But because this is just something I do on the side, I'm not particularly worried about it. So talking a little bit about the successes I've had in the App Store, a couple top rankings I've had. I have a #2 hit in Canada. So my app Checkout Helper was the #2 paid business application in Canada one time. It went to 2 and then went right back to 50. So, but I hit #2, so that's really cool. And then my app Textables, when it launched, it was the #28 paid social networking app in the U.S. So I've had a little bit of success, and it's nice to be rewarded for the hard work you put in, especially when you're doing stuff at night. It's the worst to do stuff at night and not have any reward for it. So where do we start with marketing your apps? Like you want to start marketing your apps before you actually write the app. So the title of my talk was a little kind of backwards. It's like, I wrote the app, now what do I do? It's not that. It's, I want to write this app. What should I do before I start writing the app? So as software developers, we're used to seeing something like this called the app development life cycle. We start with defining the problem, we design the stuff, we develop the stuff, we debug it, and we deploy it. And I would like to say that this is wrong. We need to add some steps in here. We need to change a few things. So the first thing we need to do is research. So we need to research our market. We need to research our idea, find out whether it's a good idea or not. If it's not a good idea, you probably shouldn't do it. Then we need to prototype the idea. Just get some bare bones things out there for somebody to try and see if it's actually going to work. And then instead of defining, because now we've worked to define it through our research and our prototyping, we then validate it. So we use that prototype to validate our idea. And then we go through the design, development, debug, and deployment process. And then afterwards, we make sure that we market it. So you really need to be thinking about marketing throughout this whole development life cycle. So the app development and marketing life cycle. Marketing, kind of, we always think of it as an afterthought, but you need to be thinking of it during the entire process of putting together your app. So, and then I prepared this nice little bar chart of the likelihood that you'll do any of these. So, not a lot of people will do the research, prototype, and validate steps. But here at Skookum, we do that a lot. We go and we research the problem of the client, and we then try and validate what our answer is going to be before we actually go and build a full-fledged solution. And so researching and doing user testing and interviewing is really a big part of what we do here. And then, like, you can't actually have a product if you don't do the design, development, debug, and deployment. So those are, like, you're going to do those. And then marketing, again, it always seems just like an afterthought. So, but really, in order to make a hit application or something that people want to use, you have to start with a great idea. And ideas can come from anywhere. I got an idea for one of my apps by talking to a friend at a bar. And she was like, hey, it would be really cool if I could do this. And I'm like, well, I could probably do that. And we talked about it for a couple weeks, and we kind of fleshed out the idea. And I wound up actually writing the app, and it's making me money now. And she doesn't see any of it. Now, if she had a non-disclosure agreement with me, I might have given her some money. So I want to walk through all of these different steps that I was talking about and kind of talk about what we should do during each part of this process. So the first thing you want to do is find your competitors. So if you've got this great idea, you want to figure out who else is doing it. And then, like, if they've got an app already out there, download it. Like, it doesn't even matter if it's paid or not. Like you need to spend money to make money. And so, like, if it costs $5 to buy that app of your competitor, do it, because the insights that you're going to get from that $5 purchase will be invaluable to you. So you need to figure out what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong, and then also kind of like look at the market and like put feelers out and see what kind of likelihood there is that somebody else is going to come out and start doing the same thing you are. There's a big trend now in like internet music services, and so Spotify was like one of the big first players out there, and I'm sure they did a competitive analysis to determine like how likely is it that Apple's going to come out with this? How likely is it that Amazon's going to come out with it? And they probably said very likely, because now almost all of these big companies have actually come out with their own music streamings and sharing services. So you need to look at marketplace need. So if nobody needs your app, you're not going to sell any app and you're not going to make any money. And so what's the point in actually doing it? We all want to get paid for our time, and so there's really no reason to do something if you're not going to have any sort of reward, unless it's just scratching a personal itch, and that's not really what I'm talking about here today. So you need to ask friends their opinions about the idea. It's very crucial to kind of get like some initial feedback in your researching time about whether someone would enjoy using this app, or they would find benefit in that. And then the biggest thing to ask someone is not just, do you think this is a good idea, or would you use this, but would you pay for this? Because if someone's willing to use it but not willing to pay for it, then you need to figure out either some way to monetize it through advertisements, and nobody likes ads, or some other way to get money by selling the user data, which nobody likes that either. So if people aren't willing to pay for your product, you should really rethink the product and figure out what you can do to make people willing to pay for it. And ask some complete strangers. Your friends and your family, they're all gonna kind of have this like rose-colored glasses on when they're talking to you about your idea, and they're like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, go ahead and do it and waste all your time and nobody will use it. So you want to make sure you ask people that like don't have like a vested interest in making sure that your feelings are not hurt. So go just ask a complete stranger on the street, and like I'm very outgoing, I don't have a problem doing this at all, but some of you might have a problem doing that. So maybe just like ask a outgoing friend to ask somebody on the street, or like somebody in line at Chick-fil-A or something like that, if they would use an app that did such and so thing. So that's really the stuff that you need to figure out during the research time, and a lot of it's going to take going out of your comfort zone, and it's why a lot of people don't actually do this step. I remember we did a project here at Skookum where we were trying to figure out if little handheld barcode scanners could read off of an e-ink display. And so I just loaded up a bunch of barcodes onto a Kindle, and one of our employees went out and just went to different stores around uptown and said, could you scan this barcode off this Kindle for me? And so like it validated our idea, but it took someone going out of their comfort zone to actually figure out if that idea was correct or not. So the next step is prototyping. So our design department is really great about this, and they use tools to generate a clickable mock-up of an app, just so that you can see like how the flow is going to work throughout the app, and figure out like if you need to switch screens from being here to over here, and figure out just kind of the general layout of your app. And this is really the first step in designing it, but all the pretty stuff comes later. And this talk was for a specific developer conference called Ruby Motion, and so I put in here, use Ruby Motion to create an MVP product. So don't worry about bugs, don't worry about making it pretty, and don't worry about creating an icon or loading screen. Like that comes with the whole design part. Right now we're just trying to get a clickable mock-up or just a bare bones application that can be used by someone to validate the idea. And then the thing you mostly want to worry about during this prototyping stage is, can you get the main point of the app's functionality across to a new user? Like, you want to make sure that whatever this thing is meant to do, that the prototype does it well, with some exceptions. It can crash or whatever, but so you just say, oh, sorry, this is just a prototype. And then, so it just needs to do whatever it's going to do, and that's all it does. Like, you can add fluff to the application later, and you can add animations and sounds and things like that later. Really, all you need to do is get the main point of the app across. And then the next step is validate. So I've got a bunch of do's and don'ts here in the validation stage. So again, you want to ask strangers to use the app. Somebody that has never used it before, doesn't know anything about the project, doesn't know anything about what it's even supposed to do. Just hand it to them and say, hey, try this out. And then you'll be able to look and see what kind of things they're trying to do with it. Does a button in this location confuse them? Or do they not understand why you made this green instead of blue? And that way that can help inform your design decisions. It can help inform your user experience decisions as well. So you want to conduct focus groups if that's in the budget. A lot of times we're building apps for big clients and they've got a budget. We can do a focus group and get a bunch of people in the room and have them talk about what they like, what they don't like about the idea, what they like, what they don't like about the interface that you've come up with. You want to take the user feedback seriously and use it to make informed decisions. Like, you don't want to just say like, oh, they said that I should move this button to the right instead of the left. Like, you need to have a reason why you're going to do all that stuff. So you need to make sure you're recording this user feedback and take it seriously. And again, listen to your users. And then at this point, you don't want to ask your friends about their opinion. At this point, we've already kind of validated, you're trying to validate that it's going to work. And friends at this point, they're going to be like, oh, you've got all this time invested in this already, like you should just keep going, you should keep doing it. And so at this point, you don't really want to ask them for their opinion. Same with family. You don't want to dismiss user struggles. Like I was saying before, like when you just hand it to somebody and they're like they get stuck on a screen and they don't know what to do because the directions aren't clear or something like that. That's an indication that you need to get one of your user experience people on that and figure out why that user is getting stuck. And a lot of times, I as a software engineer, I know how the system works that I built, and I'm like, oh, well, it's obvious. You just press this button here, or you just enter this password that the user should know. But a lot of times users don't know that, and it's an indication to you that you need to either prompt them for something or provide better instructions. So people struggling with your app is an indication that you've done something wrong, not that they're doing something wrong. A lot of times we think that, well, the users are stupid, they don't know what they're doing, and it's not that the users are stupid, we haven't instructed them in what they need to do. And so really it's up to us to do that and get the point across to the user of what they're supposed to be doing at any given step of the stage. Don't take all the user suggestions. So like if you had a focus group and they came up with a laundry list of 100 things that they think you should do with the app, like you don't need to take all those and implement them. Because focus groups are a way to get feedback and determine if there's anything we might have missed. Is there something that users say they really want and we think is a good idea as well? And so once you have that laundry list of ideas, you need to prune it down and take ones that like they're really serious about and that you also think is a good idea to implement in your app. And don't submit this version to the App Store because, like I said, it's a prototype. It's got bugs and it doesn't look pretty. There's a lot more work that actually needs to be done after the validation process, which is you go and do your thing. Or you stick your developers on it, and they go do their thing. And you guys test your applications, right? Right? Yeah. Yes, thank you. We do. We test our applications here, we test our websites here, we test everything we do here. Because we have an awesome QA department. So now you've got this great app. It's there, but look, it's missing an icon. So now this is the stage where we really need to start getting tactical about our marketing. We need to have a game plan at this point about how we're going to actually execute this marketing plan. You need to be okay with changing things as you go along, but you need to have at least a rough outline of what you're going to do in order to make this app a success for you or your client, whoever you're building with. But there's some tactical things that you need to do. Are you going to have a marketing page on your website? I've got a website, mohawkapps.com, and every single app that I make has its own little landing page, and it's got, and it automatically pulls the content from iTunes for that. So if I change my description in iTunes, it changes it on my website and things like that. Are you going to have an app-specific landing page? For HackerBar, I have hackarbarapp.com, and then that the marvelous Corey Daniels designed. And he made this really cool website where it's just a landing page. It just tells you, this is an app I have. It gives a nice little description of what it does, and it has a link to the App Store. Are you going to have a page like that, or are you just going to rely on a marketing page on your website? Are you going to have a website at all for the app? Social media, are you going to have a Twitter account as the app? Are you going to make a Facebook page or group? A couple of my apps are marketed towards middle-aged women. And so I have Facebook groups for them, and that's how I communicate with them because middle-aged women love Facebook. And so and so that's how I communicate with them. That's how I tell them about updates to the app. They're not going to check Twitter for updates on my app because that's not where they are. I need to meet my users where they're at, and I need to be able to talk to them and communicate with them on their terms. App.net. I don't know if anybody knows what that is, but it's like this kind of Twitter alternative. So if you're making an app that's highly developer-centric, like something like Pythonista or something that runs code on your device, or you're going to want to try and target different market segments by using the tools that they're using. So you definitely need to know your target market and then shape your communications with your audience around that. How are you going to handle customer support? A lot of the way I do it is I just have a link in my About page that when they tap it, it emails me with some pre-filled out things in it. But you can use Zendesk, you can use Get Satisfaction. All these different tools are out there for you to use and integrate into your applications, because invariably someone is going to have a problem. Someone's not going to know how to use the app, or it's going to crash on them. You need to figure out how you're going to handle those situations. Are you going to submit your app to app review sites? There's a bunch of websites out there that you can submit your app to and give them either pre-access to it or give them a promo code, and they'll download it and they'll review it for you. Some of them are paid, some of them are not. So you need to figure out if you're going to do that sort of thing to try and promote your app. I've done both. I've paid for reviews as well as gotten just free reviews that someone picked up and my app went free for a couple days. And the paid one, I think I paid like $350 for somebody to review my app. And I got maybe 5,000 downloads. But then when someone picked it up that my app had gone free and they posted it on, you probably heard of this site, App Advice. And so they posted it on App Advice, and in 3 days I had almost 20,000 downloads. And then I made it paid again, and then I could see there was obviously a drop off, but all those people that bought it after it was paid, that was money in my pocket. So you need to figure out if you're going to be using any sort of sites like that. Promo code distribution. There's a great app specifically for iPhone apps, iPad apps, called Tokens that you can use, and it'll automatically download the promo codes, and you can name them and send a pretty landing link with instructions on how to use the promo codes. And so you need to figure out how you're going to distribute promo codes. Are you going to post codes to Reddit in specific subreddits, or are you going to post them on Facebook? Or are you going to run contests for promo codes or something like that? And then again, getting the word out, Twitter, Reddit, Facebook. A lot of my apps rely on word of mouth because I cater to the direct sales industry, and they're really good about network marketing and talking to each other about great products and services, and so I rely on word of mouth a lot. Are you gonna, if you get a big budget, maybe you can get an advertisement in a magazine that's relevant to the industry that you're catering to, as well. I got skywriting up there too. Yeah. I don't know, write your app's name in the clouds. So now let's talk about practical stuff. App development. I talked about crashes before. Like, you have to have some sort of crash reporting service. Like, you need to know when your app crashes. And that it shouldn't be up to your users to actually contact you and say, hey, I had a crash. You should be notified when users are having a crash so that you can figure out what's going on and fix it. You need to have some sort of statistical reportings. How many times is your app opened every day? How many times does an average user open your app in a given month? What's your user retention rate? So all those, and the big one is like, what type of devices are your users using it on? So like, if you've got an iPhone-only app and you find that like 20% of your users are on iPads, maybe it's time to revise your strategy and convert that to an iPhone and iPad app. So getting those sorts of insights automatically and just collected for you by reporting services is completely invaluable. You need to be doing that as a part of your marketing strategy. Internationalization and localization. This is a big one, especially if you want to appeal to a broader market. Like, a lot of people are in America, we're very US-centric, and we're like, oh, well, like, we're the only country that exists because we're the best. And like, what we need to realize is that there's a lot of other people out there that speak different languages and have different customs, and they might want to use your app too. And I'll show you an example of this here in a minute. And iTunes Connect is the service the website that you use to put all your information in for apps with Apple, and so you need to have a good icon. You need to make sure you are using keywords effectively, because people are going to be searching for your app, and you need to make sure they can find it. Your description needs to be relevant, and your screenshots need to be representative of your product. And then we're going to talk a minute about pricing and affiliate links too, which is cool. So onto reporting. So I've got this really cool little dashboard that I can see all of my apps in it. I can see my change in weekly growth. I can see my total number of active users. I can see my total number of sessions, my retention rate. Like this, all this stuff right here, like shows me like if I'm doing things right and if I'm doing things wrong. And I love it when I see the little green arrow going up, and I don't like it when I see red. I don't think anybody likes it when they see red, but it'll compare it to other apps that they track across different segments and things like that. So this is an analytics reporting service called Flurry, and I've been using them for 4 years, and so I've got tons of data in them. And there might be something better out there, but I stick with them because I have a lot of historical data, and they provide good metrics, and it's a good service. So here's another one. Here's what is this one? The number of sessions over time. And then here's a device list. So most people are on iPhone 4S and iPhone 5S on this app. So you can go and you can see, like, it'll tell you also like what version of the operating system they're on, so that you can decide when to drop support for iOS 6 or 7. So these are all really, really invaluable insights. So internationalization, I18N, is the little short code for internationalization. And we actually had a talk a while back. I forget, it was a while ago, about internationalization of software. Who did that? Do you remember who did that? Yeah, Douglas. Douglas did that from Einstein's Legacy. He's an awesome guy. And he talked to us about the importance of internationalization and how to practically do it as well. But on this graph here that I've got up on the screen, the blue line is my ranking in the US store, and the red line is my ranking for this particular app in the Brazilian app store. Can you tell when I added Portuguese to my app? Like, there's a significant difference in the trend line before and the trend line after for when I added Portuguese. And I actually did this completely by accident. Like, some guy reached out to me. He's like, "Hey, I saw your app, and I really like it. I know there's a bunch of people in Brazil that will like it, and I see that it's open source. Can I translate it for you?" And I'm like, "Of course you can translate it for me." And so I instructed him on how I needed the files, and he just sent me a pull request on GitHub. I merged the pull request and submitted a new app version. So it was almost no work on my part to actually add the Portuguese version of the app. So internationalizing your app is a big thing that can open doors to lots of other cultures and countries. But you need to make sure that you're working with someone who's a native speaker, so that they can figure out all those different nuances. Like, I think the famous example was the Chevy Nova. They launched it in Spain, and nobody bought it because Nova in Spain means no go. So you need to make sure that you're working with people that understand those sort of nuances of the language when you're internationalizing your software. So let's talk a little bit about iTunes Connect, again, the portal that Apple gives you to input all your metadata about your app. So every app has to have a description. You don't want to write the description for your app. You want to get somebody else to do it. Hire a copywriter, and give him a copy of the app and say, "Use this and tell me what it does." And then you fill in the blanks later of things that they might have missed, and then ask for a revision. But it's really important that you kind of distance yourself from writing the app's description, because you know it so intimately that you're going to maybe gloss over things or not describe things properly because of the way you understand that it works, instead of the way a user is going to understand that it works. So keywords. Keywords are really, really important for discoverability. And in Apple's system, you don't actually need spaces. All you need is a comma to separate things. So you want to do Noah, comma, wind, comma, skydive instead of Noah, comma, space, and then the capital, it's going to be the same search result. So there's no reason to have duplicates in there with different capitalizations. You do want to do common misspellings, though. It's like if there's a word that most people misspell, or a lot of people misspell, you want to put the correct spelling and the misspelling in there. especially if it's like a company name that people often like switch letters around, or the word receive. I can never spell that word. Oh, thank God for spell check. So make sure that you're working with someone who understands the keyword systems of this particular app store that you're going into. And design a great icon or pay someone to do it for you. This icon here was designed by the lovely Mel Shields. I worked with her, and I gave her a description of my app. I didn't really even show her what it was. I told her it was a weather application. It shows different wind altitude data, speed, direction, and temperature. The icon needs to convey a feeling of wind, and it should have the feeling of altitude. So it needs to be have some sort of like gradient or something in there that gives the user a sense of height. And so this is what she came up with for me after, I think we did one revision? I think it was one revision, and we got this awesome icon. And so what happened was this icon actually influenced the design of the entire application. And so I started off with the version on the left, and I thought I was being all clever and generating the colors programmatically. And I showed it to Mel, and she's like, "That looks horrible. You need to change that and make it more consistent." And so she actually gave me the colors that I needed from that icon in order to generate the gradient that was like the icon for the different wind altitudes. And so working with the designer, especially if you're not one, like I tried generating colors programmatically, and it just didn't work out at all. And so working with a designer that can really put a different spin on things is pretty important, just so that you can have a more polished final product. And so for the coders in the room, here's how I was doing it before. The cell background color, I was like giving it a percentage of how much lighter I wanted the base color to be. And so I wound up just changing it to the one on the top there, just hard coding the colors in and just picking one out of the index. So, yeah. So sometimes we think we're so clever, but we're not. So screenshots. Screenshots are really, really important. Here's a shot of this Scanner Pro. Someone searched for Scanner Pro in the App Store. One of them is £5 and the other one is £2. Based on the screenshots, would you give the £5 one a shot? Like, it looks a lot nicer. It looks like they spent a lot more time designing it and a lot more care. Like, I might take a chance on that versus the £2 one, because all they did was just take a screenshot of their simulator and upload it. So like the time and care you put into putting your into your screenshots in the App Store is going to be kind of indicative of the time and care that you put into the app itself. Like if you just rush and just take a screenshot and upload it, like people are gonna see that, and when they're comparing it to other apps that maybe do almost the exact same thing as yours does, they may choose the other app instead of yours if you don't have really great screenshots. And so here's an example of one of mine, my little texting app. I tried to do the same thing, like with a blurred background, and kind of put it inside of an iPhone and showing kind of like how you would use it. And I'll tell you, this is not easy to like do this, especially when you have to change like when you submit an update and you change the interface. You've got to go in and change every single one of these screenshots. So 5 screenshots times the 3.5 inch and the 4 inch screen times the iPad. So like you've got to do a lot of work to actually change these screenshots, and I think a lot of times users will appreciate the time and care that you put into the screenshots to help market your application, and they'll understand that you spent the same amount of time and effort and care on the actual application itself. So a little bit about pricing. There's this thing called the price elasticity of demand, and this is fancy kind of economics term, where something is only worth what someone is willing to pay for it. And the lower the price goes, the more units you have to sell in order to actually make the same amount of money of less units at a higher price. So you've got to try and figure out where that sweet spot is along that, and every single app and product has its own curve of demand versus price, and you have to figure out what your curve is and what the maximum price is that someone is willing to pay, and still have the maximum amount of purchases. And so you need to play with the app's price a little bit. Like some apps, like not every app needs to be 99 cents. Like I've got a lot of premium apps. Like I've got a $4 app, I've got a $5 app. And I've played with those prices to figure out kind of where the sweet spot is that someone is willing to pay and I still have enough downloads that I'm meeting my goals, my personal goals. And so really you need to figure out where that is. Make an app, start out an app off at $3 and then keep it there for a couple weeks. Gather information about what it's doing, how much it's selling, and then change it to $2. And then have it like that for another couple weeks. And maybe raise it to $7 and see if people still buy it. And if they don't buy it, it's an indication that people aren't willing to do that, so you need to lower the price. So don't be afraid to, I'm gonna miss out on all this revenue because I set my app my price too high for a couple days. It's like, people are in the App Store every single day, and just because they don't buy it today doesn't mean they won't buy it tomorrow or next week. I use the iTunes wish list feature kind of to just keep track of things that I think are interesting, but I'm not willing to pay for them right now, or not willing to pay that much for them right now. And I know a lot of other people use the wish list feature as well. So, and just to kind of keep track and keep an eye on different apps. So. Play with the prices and try and figure out where that sweet spot is. And affiliate links. So on my website, when someone clicks the link to download in the App Store, it automatically appends my affiliate code to the download link. And when someone's iPhone either opens the App Store or it opens iTunes on their computer and they hit that little download link, I get an extra like 3 to 7% depending from that. And so that's more money in my pocket. And you can kind of see, like, you can run campaigns. And so like you can just append something to the URL and you can see like I cross promote one of my apps through another app. I have a free app that cross promotes a paid app. And so I get you can see it's called BJCP app right there. And you can see the number of clicks, 373 clicks. And 202 items were bought. I got a $13.44 commission, and my conversion rate was 53.87% for that campaign. So you can see how using this sort of thing, I'm tracking how well that cross promotion is working, and it seems to be working pretty well in my app. And then you can see my Mohawk apps. That's just a campaign that I run that everything from my website appends that campaign to it, and you can see I have a 16.67% conversion rate on my website for that. And what's really cool is that they don't have to buy your stuff. Like you can be, right now, every single one of you in this room, if you are on a website, you can become an iTunes affiliate, and you can start making money by linking to the App Store. And when people purchase something, you get a cut of it. And so for me as a developer, it's just a way for me to recoup some more of that 30% that Apple takes from me, or rather that I give to Apple willingly, the benevolent Apple. And but what's great is that if someone clicks my link, maybe they don't even buy my app. They go and they say, oh, this is another cool thing that I want to buy. If they hit the purchase button within 24 hours, I still get a cut of that. So for 24 hours after they click that link, I get a cut of whatever they buy in the App Store. And that's why some of my conversion rate or my click rates are more than 100%. Like I think the one on the bottom right, yeah, it's like 150%, because someone bought something that wasn't mine when they clicked my link. And so it's 24 hours or until they click another affiliate link, whichever time is less. So becoming an iTunes affiliate, I don't know if Google offers the same sort of thing for the Play Store. They might, but I use Apple's affiliate program, and it makes me money. And then the last thing I want to talk about here is changing the game plan. So at Skookum, we do a lot of agile stuff. We do agile software development. And I would put it out there that we also need to do agile marketing as well. You need to be able to feel free to try new things. If something's not working, you need to change it up and try something else. Like I was talking about changing your pricing model. Like, don't be afraid to try changing something if it's not working. Or even if it is working, maybe something else will work better. Make sure you're listening to your customers. I talked about putting some way in there for customer support. I get a lot of just support emails where it's someone saying like, I wish your app did this. And I get enough of those things with people requesting the same feature. I know that I need to actually seriously consider putting that into my application. So you want to also release minor updates really frequently, just even if it's like a single bug fix. Because now with Apple, the iOS 7 automatically updates stuff. And so users don't have to actually go in and look and see it. So there's no harm at all in releasing something that just fixes one bug. Whereas before, we had to rely on users actually hitting that update button all the time to download your app, and people just wouldn't do it. And I remember looking at a friend's iPhone one time, and I'm like, why does it say 105 next to your App Store app? And so I had her tap it, and the updates, sure enough, she had 105 updates that she'd never installed on her phone. So I made sure I hit that button for her. And so now there's no user pain at all to updating their apps. And then also it puts a little teeny tiny little blue dot next to your app so that they'll see that and say, oh, it's been updated, I wonder what's new, and then they'll open your app and they'll re-engage with your application when you release minor updates all the time. And the last thing I want to talk about is playing the long game. I've been at this for about 5 years, and I've made about $100,000 in the App Store during that time. And it keeps increasing every single year. And so don't be afraid to get in it and just do your thing and wait it out. Because the App Store, as long as you stay relevant, like people are going to keep buying your apps. I have an app that I haven't updated in 2.5 years, and it's still my biggest seller. And so you need to make sure that you're playing the long game. Like not everybody's going to be Flappy Bird or A Dark Room or like that one hit that like makes you like $200,000 overnight. Like that doesn't happen very often. And when it does happen, it's just completely random. It's like lightning striking. Like Flappy Bird's not even a great game. It's like really not even that much fun. It's just so frustrating. I've only gotten like to 10. Oh man, we might have to have a Flappy Bird off. So, anyways, you need to play the long game because it's about the App Store for me is about a long tail of revenue. It's not about making a bunch of money up front. So, a lot of people have a problem with that. Like you put in a lot of work up front and then you just hope that it works. But implementing these sort of marketing tactics and strategies are going to make it so that it's going to be less risky for you to play that long game. So, that's my talk. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, Mel.
Number of apps out there, have they all kind of come to you spontaneously, or do you have like kind of an ideation moment, or kind of what's your inspiration?
So Mel's question is, well, what's my inspiration for the apps that I write out there? Because I mean, I've got probably more than the average kind of developer has in the App Store, and really for me, it's about it started back when I started doing this as just kind of scratching my own itch. I wanted to like write an app because I wanted to learn how to do it and things like that. But now it's more of I see a need for something, or I want to help improve a hobby that I have. And like my ex-wife is a police officer in Winston-Salem, and so I was like, hey, I wonder what all the crime is like in Winston-Salem. And so I wrote a crime application for Winston-Salem that automatically downloads the crime data from the police web servers and stores it in my database and plots it on a map, and you can go and explore and see how many arrests there were every day and go back in time and stuff like that. So it's really for me about personal satisfaction, turning that into a business. And like my Aloft one that you designed the app for, or the icon for, when I started skydiving, and I'm like, hey, I think this would be cool. And another great benefit to that is when you turn your hobbies into businesses, it's all tax deductible. So, yeah.
So what did you learn about the psychology of somebody purchasing an app? The idea of like, well, we have no problem buying a coffee for $4.
Yeah.
But to purchase a $1.99 app,
right.
It's a lot of effort and a lot of
purchasing. Yeah. Purchasing a $1.99 app, like people feel more pain doing that than buying a $4 latte at Starbucks. And so that's why I've focused a lot of my big applications on business consumers. So I go to trade shows. I was just out one last week, and I go and I talk to them about these business applications that I have, and they understand that it's a tax write-off, and that lessens the pain for them, and so they're willing to pay $5 for an application because they understand that it's going to be a tool for their business. So that's really why I've tried to focus on direct sales market for my big name applications out there that make me the most money, honestly. But yeah, it's funny too how when I lowered my price to 0, I got 20,000 downloads, and then I raise it again, and then the next day I get like 200. So like, yeah, people are willing to take a chance on a free application because they know they can just delete it and it's no skin off their back. But when they're actually paying for it, you need to convince them that it's worth it. And so that again plays into the marketing of it. Your description has to be compelling. Your screenshots have to be compelling. The way you communicate with your customers, like I do a lot of pre-sales communication, honestly, for my direct sales applications, where I'm talking to people on Facebook and interacting with them as my brand, so that they understand who I am and that I'm here to help them. And once they understand that, they're much more willing to pay a higher price for an app. So. Yeah.
Have you played around with the freemium kind of way of it yet?
I have played around with freemium stuff. Well, not really. I have a paid app that has paid in-app purchases, and they still buy them because it's a business app. And so I'm trying to think. I think the freemium model is a very valid business model. If you want to get a lot of downloads, a lot of user interaction with people, and then get them to take that next step with you, and I think it helps establish trust in the application and who you are as a company or a person. But I haven't experimented with it a whole lot. I like to put a value on my work, and so I usually just make paid applications. And then if other people don't see the value in that, then they can go take a long walk off a short pier. Yeah.
Have you noticed certain trends with doing minor updates with positive and negative reviews being erased and kind of after that download?
People don't write reviews. There was a big discussion maybe 6 months ago on the internet about prompting users to review your app, like in your app. Some people were vehemently against it. Other people were like, no, I have to do this. And I've found that the only way to get reviews is to ask for them in the app. I very rarely get people that just spontaneously go to iTunes, search for my app that they've already purchased, go click reviews and hit add new review. Like they're just not gonna do it unless it's, and when you see apps that have lots and lots of reviews, it's because they've got, like the percentage of those number of people is like 2% that do that. And it's because they have a gigantic number of downloads. Or they prompt for people in the app once they've used it for like 15 days or have launched it 10 times or have done certain actions within the application. They then prompt the user to rate the application, like map my ride and map my run and that sort of stuff. Like once you like hit save after a couple times, it'll say, did this app work for you? And if you say yes, it'll say, hey, well, thanks. Can you write a review on iTunes for us? And if you say no, it brings you to their customer support page and say, tell us what we can do better. So so basically, it kind of like it sifts the people into two different buckets: the people that are going to write positive reviews for you, and the people that you need to contact through that need to contact you through customer service. So they try and mitigate all those negative reviews by kind of funneling them through that user workflow. So I prompt for people to rate my application after 10 days or 15 launches, whichever comes first. So, Pedro.
How much weight do you put on installs as a metric?
The question was, how much weight do I put on in the number of installs? If it's a paid application, a lot. Like if it's a paid application, I want people downloading and installing my app, and it's really for me more about kind of that user retention, especially for my apps that rely more on word of mouth to spread. I like to see that people are using it over and over and over again because it keeps it top of mind, and then they're going to be more likely to tell their friends about the app. Say, hey, I use this thing all the time. It really works really well for me. You should download it too. So number of installs is important, but the user retention is more important. Oh, yes, Daddy.
Do you notice any demographic trends insofar as people that are willing to pay or not pay for an app? Like, do more women pay for apps? Do more men? Do more international buyers pay for apps? Is there any sort of demographic split that you're seeing as far as that data?
The question was about demographics and if I see any sort of trends in that about who's willing and unwilling to pay for apps. I don't really track a whole lot of demographic data. I have a target market, and I market to my target market, and anybody else who's outside of that demographic is just bonus for me. So, yeah. Anybody else? Yeah.
So when you get something out of the store, obviously you go through the store sort of mechanism to find something you're interested in, or come from outside and essentially go and look at it.
Yeah.
What balance do you find people doing those two routes? How much is coming from the storefront versus your push?
Right. So his question was basically about like what the difference is I see in people coming and finding my apps and purchasing them through like organic search and through my website versus just searching in the app store. Is that right? Yeah. Because I've got such a wide variety of apps, I haven't really taken the time to look at that for every single one. But my business apps, people generally just type the name into the app store and purchase it from there. So I get less of the affiliate link kind of like revenue from those apps. But then again, they're higher priced apps, and so I make more money on them in the long run. But for kind of my apps that cater towards like beer nerds and kind of like the fun texting app and stuff like that, that has a much higher instance of them purchasing the app or finding me through organic search over my website than just typing it into the store. So, cool. I think if there are no more questions, oh yeah, one more. We'll do one more.
What's the way that you get outside of paying for the kind of app review sites to write a review on your app? How do you get some of the ones to do it for free? Yeah, so the question was, how do you get people to review your app for free? If it's a paid app, a lot of times if you just send a promo code to somebody, they'll write a review for you. I know that some people here worked on an app that was like for a children's game or whatever. And basically, in that sort of instance, I would think, who's my target market that's going to be buying this? And then go out and figure out who are the voices that talk to that target market. So for a children's game, I would contact every single mommy blogger I could find. And I would say, hey, I have this great app. I'll give you a promo code for it. Would you do a review for me and post it on your website? And again, then it's like completely impartial, and they'll say what they're going to say about it, and you run a risk of them maybe not liking your app. Whereas I think that when you get paid reviewers to do it, they're gonna be more vested in trying to make you happy than actually giving you an honest review about the app. So basically, it's about knowing who your target market is for the app, and then figuring out who are the loudest voices in that community, and then going and asking those voices to help you. And some of them, in certain instances, will come back and say, yeah, I do it for $50 each time I do it. Because they've got to make money too. So really, that's probably the best way about going about getting free reviews, is just understanding who your target market is, and then figuring out who those voices are that talk to them. So, all right, thank you very much. Appreciate you coming today.